Sounds familiar. You pick up a new hobby, obsess over it for a month or two, and then get bored and move on to the next thing. And then after countless hobbies, you finally found a hobby you love and stick with, seeing rapid progress at first until you suddenly hit a wall. Frustrated, you put in even more time expecting the quick and easy improvements to return, only to find yourself barely even improving. Well, I was also stuck in this cycle for years, before I made an effort to research and analyze how to learn. I had to take a step back and look within myself and see these patterns and figure out how to break them. Two of the most important discoveries I made were first, that there was already something I was doing right, something that I believe will immediately greatly improve your ability to learn new skills, and second, I realized that in many ways I had been approaching the entire process of learning completely wrong. To begin, I would like to tell you about the method I use personally, and personally call the Cicada Method. I have scientific evidence to back up this method and why I believe it works so well. Now, I do not claim to be the first person to come up with this method, and definitely not the first person to use it. But I have not seen anyone else talk about it. The closest I've seen to people talking about this strategy is people talking about grinding. But that doesn't capture the full depth of this method. The reason I call it the Cicada Method is because I believe metaphors are one of the best ways to describe complex concepts. And the life cycle of the cicada perfectly embodies the essence of this method in more ways than one. Cicadas spend the majority of their lives underground, silently building strength and preparing for the moment when they emerge and thrive. After that, they return underground to repeat the cycle. The Cicada Method mirrors this by emphasizing daily practice. You commit to practicing your chosen hobby or skill every single day for a set amount of time at the same time each day. The key is consistency, just like the cicada's gradual build up to emergence. But there's one crucial part of this method that many overlook. Don't share your goal or progress with others, or at least not yet. This might sound counterintuitive, but when you tell people about your goals, your brain releases dopamine as if you've already achieved your goals. This can actually discourage you from putting in the necessary effort to reach your goal, because you've already experienced a bit of the reward mentally. So, just like the cicada's quiet underground work, you should focus on the practice in silence, stay low, stay consistent, and let your results speak for themselves. Now, it is important to delve into how dopamine actually works to better understand why secrecy around your goals is so vital. Dopamine is often misunderstood as the happiness chemical. There's an amazing metaphor for dopamine that I heard once and have found it helpful beyond words, comparing dopamine to squeezing a lemon. Just like a lemon can only release so much juice, your brain can only release so much dopamine. And much like how squeezing a lemon too much results in less juice with each squeeze, the more frequently you trigger your brain's dopamine system, especially for small rewards, the less you get out of it over time. This is where many people go wrong. Many believe we receive dopamine whenever we complete a task, when really, dopamine is more so a currency we spend. You see, dopamine isn't just a happiness chemical, but it's also the chemical that gives us motivation to complete tasks. Every time we achieve something and receive a dopamine hit, we're spending that currency. Over time, if we consistently trigger dopamine by sharing our goals or celebrating minor wins too early, we essentially spend more than we earn. We feel a temporary high, but diminish the motivation for the actual effort required later. That's why keeping your goals to yourself and avoiding premature validation is key. By doing so, you preserve the dopamine motivation to actually do the hard work. Now, let's take a look at the other side of the Cicada Method. While it may seem counterintuitive again, rest is just as important, if not more so, than the practice itself. Just like how cicadas spend the majority of its life underground, quietly preparing, you must also know when to step back and rest. Resting properly, both physically and mentally, is often overlooked when it comes to improving at anything, but it's a crucial part of the process. You see, improvement doesn't only happen when you're practicing. Sometimes it's about giving your brain the time it needs to process and consolidate what you've already learned. Now, I'm going to share a personal experience to help illustrate this point I'm making. One of my main hobbies is playing guitar. I've been playing for over half a decade now, or almost 1/3 of my life. In the beginning, I made rapid progress, but eventually I hit a wall. For me, it was hammer-ons and pull-offs. I could nail hammer-ons, no problem, no issue at all. But when it came to pull-offs, I just physically couldn't do it. I physically couldn't pull off the strings and make it ring out to save my life. It bothered me because I could do other techniques like bar chords, alternate picking, double stops. I could do those easily when I saw other people struggle with those, and those same people I watched struggle to hold a bar chord could easily string together long sections of hammer-ons and pull-offs in these beautiful guitar solos. Yet for me, pull-offs remained an impossible task. It was incredibly defeating. So one day after practicing, I put the guitar in the corner of my room, just like I would at any other practice session. But for some reason this time, I didn't pick it up for months. It just collected dust in the corner. I focused on other things like playing video games and completely avoided the guitar. But after some time, the urge to play resurfaced. I picked up my guitar again and tried to play some of the first songs I'd learned. To my surprise, I wasn't just able to play them, I was actually better at them than before. Then I decided to give pull-offs another shot, and guess what? I could suddenly do them, no struggle, no frustration. It was like my brain had absorbed the information during the time I'd rested and allowed myself to recharge. One important thing to understand, though, is that progress is never linear. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you just keep putting in the effort, you'll constantly improve, but that's simply not the case. There will be times when you're making leaps and bounds every single day, and then out of nowhere, you'll hit a wall and actually get worse. And that's perfectly okay. Progress isn't a straight line. It's full of peaks, valleys, and constant plateaus. You'll have hard times when you feel stuck, but remember those struggles are part of the process. You can't avoid them. And that's exactly why I'm here, to help you get over those struggles, push through the plateaus, and keep moving forward. The most important thing to get through these plateaus is to give yourself breaks. If you don't, you'll burn yourself out, and burnout kills progress faster than anything else. If you notice burnout creeping in, you have two options. One I highly recommend, and one I really don't, but I get that sometimes it's necessary. The first option, and the best option most of the time, is to just take a short break. Step away for a week, maybe 2 at the most, and let yourself reset. Anything beyond that and you risk losing momentum, making it much harder to get back into the flow. The second option, which I don't recommend but have done myself, is to push through the burnout until it eventually fades. And let me tell you, it sucks. It's mentally exhausting, and the only cases where I think it's actually worth it are with the gym and work. Even then, with fitness, you don't start losing muscle for at least 2 weeks, and with work, sometimes you need a vacation. Simple. That said, don't fall into the trap of constantly taking extended breaks. At most, you should only need a major reset 4 times a year. This next piece of advice was the most difficult for me personally, and likely going to be the most difficult for a lot of you watching. Cut down on your hobbies. Focus on one main skill you want to master and one physical activity to stay in shape. Everything else should either support your main goal or be something you do occasionally for fun. Spreading yourself too thin is the fastest way to stay average at everything and great at nothing. After you have settled into a proper schedule of practice time and focus on a few hobbies with proper breaks, it's time to focus on potentially the most misunderstood part of learning, and that is learning efficiency greatly overtakes learning quantity. Let me explain. Many people make the mistake of when they hit a plateau, they try to just practice more, which will help, but only marginally. What is much more important is to optimize your practice. For example, with guitar, if you just sit down every day and noodle around and play through songs you already know and learn a new song every week, your progress will be slim. What you need to do is set up a practice routine. The key is to analyze what you need to improve on and front-loading your practice with exercises that will focus on the weaknesses. Then you save the parts that you find most enjoyable for the end of the session. This will keep you excited throughout your session and will give you tremendous improvements. Practicing this way for just 30 minutes a day will help you improve much faster than spending hours practicing inefficiently. This section of the video is for those who want their passion to become their identity, who want to truly make it, who want to build their life around one pursuit. In order to do this, you need structured, frequent practice. Have multiple sessions a day, each lasting at least an hour. The length of each session will determine how many you can fit in. Some people thrive on short, high-intensity bursts, while others improve through longer, steady practice. I recommend a balance. When I was deeply focused on guitar, I practiced 2 to 3 times a day, with each session lasting around 2 hours. I normally didn't even have rest days in the weeks. But now as an adult with more responsibilities, I don't have that luxury. But the principle remains the same. Consistent, high-efficiency practice with a structured routine. Next, optimize your life. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. I recommend at least 9 hours of sleep. That's what worked best for me personally. Another thing, stay active with a physical hobby and maintain a high-protein, nutritious diet. Your mind and body are deeply connected. If one deteriorates, the other follows. In order to improve at peak rates, you need to function at a peak. This is also where I'd recommend pushing through burnout. If you suddenly throw yourself into an intense routine, you'll burn out fast. Instead, you need to train your brain to accept this as the new normal. Even on my rest days now, which are Sundays, I still engage with my craft. I plan out my practice sessions for the upcoming week, I theory craft improvements, and analyze my progress. I also used to keep a journal to track my weaknesses and strengths. That way, at the end of every week, I could reevaluate my approach and adjust accordingly. This level of commitment isn't for everyone, and that's okay because this simply isn't healthy. But at the same time, this is only for the people who really want to make it. I would like to thank you for watching the first video on this channel. I will be posting YouTube videos every Friday. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm excited to see you next week for my next video. Until then, I'm out.